Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the podcast. I have Evan GIIA joining me today on the episode, and it was just such a joy to talk with her. She is such an inspirational, motivational person through and through. Energy is peak A1. Um, she has just really created her own lane. It's taken years of hard work. She sits in between, like, I consider her like a pop electronic dance music star. She brings such high energy and such an immaculate performance to all of her shows. She has been doing support slots for huge A tier acts such as ODESZA and Alison Wonderland for the last few years. Now she is doing tours of her own. She has a GIIA Move series in coordination with her tour stops where she's doing cycling classes. Everything about Evan GIIA is extremely unique, extremely futuristic, and I think gives hope to so many aspiring female, male featuring artists in the electronic dance music scene. She has totally built a brand of her own. She totally has a mission of her own. It was just such an inspiring conversation. And you can hear her vocals, check out her tour stop, make sure to check out her Spotify. She just had a massive feature, which she does not do many of, with Illenium and Dillon Francis. She just released a new EP with a massive tour to back it up. I'm sure sometime in 2023, she will be in your city. So when you see her, make sure to go and check her out. We talk about everything from building the project from the ground up to working with producers Memba and so much more, label deals, building a team, building a brand, and what's on the horizon for her own project. So don't forget, you can check out this episode ad-free on my Patreon. I also have bloopers, exclusive content, one-on-one lessons, group lessons, and so much more at www.patreon.com/thisisLizzyJane. And without further ado, I hope you guys had a wonderful Thanksgiving week with friends and families and loved ones and people who care about you and give a shit. And you're tuning in to today's episode with Evan GIIA. I will see you guys next week. The show today was brought to you by Vitaplur E-Boost Gum. With no pill to take or powders to mix, Vitaplur E-Boost Gum is a first-of-its-kind energy rave supplement that provides magnesium, electrolytes, and antioxidants while you chew. Vitaplur is the perfect complement to my active lifestyle, whether it's at the festival, on the road touring, or hitting the gym. Chew Vitaplur and dance with confidence. Use code LizzyJane for 10% off any order.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for joining me today. I greatly appreciate you taking the time to come and talk about all the fun stuff that's going on in your life.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll just hop right into it, and
Perfect.
you have so much to talk about, so I'm so excited. We have the wonderful Evan GIIA joining us today, and I'm so happy to have discovered you through online channels and just watched this incredible journey of you having like this classical training background in like orchestral music and going to Berklee, and then now you're here and you're like touring as an EDM act, and it's like it's so cool and it's so much fun. And like, for those listeners who may not be like really familiar with you, could you just give us some background on who you are, like how the Evan GIIA project like came to be?
Sure. Well, yeah, first off, thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here. I basically have been singing my whole life. I started singing lessons when I was like 5. I kind of attribute my whole career to my first singing teacher, Sarah Moran, who believed, she was like, there's something special here. She told my parents to keep it up. So I started taking, like biweekly classes, and then that quickly shifted into studying classical music and opera, which I was doing competitions every weekend in the greater Boston area, as well as in my school, choirs and musicals and bands and all that. So I was doing music forever. And I loved it up until college, where I had to make a decision. Did I want to go full classical and go into a conservatory, or apply to some place like Berklee College of Music and do a more contemporary route. So I chose Berklee. I got in right away. And yeah, I honestly, it's a wild story because I stopped singing right when I got into Berklee. I think it's big fish, small pond. And then it's the very opposite when you go to a place like that. It's like so much talent. It's pretty overwhelming. And so, yeah, my confidence was just totally shot. I ended up getting my music business degree. So it's been super helpful in my career. Um, but I graduated with music business degree, moved to New York City, started working as a receptionist at a mastering studio. So yeah, I was just feeling like, oh, there's something else I'm meant to do. I honestly didn't even dream that I could be the artist. I thought I'd for sure be a manager or at a record label. I did hundreds of internships. So yeah, I saw the whole back end of the industry. I moved to New York and met my now husband, Deshaun, who's my producer. They go by Memba. And he urged me to start writing. I ended up quitting my receptionist job, taking a huge leap of faith, and just started Evan GIIA. It first started as GIIA, then I added the Evan. We started putting stuff out on SoundCloud. It started to catch a wave. ODESZA noticed my song WESTWORLD, and then here we are. So,
oh my gosh, it's just one, good boyfriends are the absolute best. That is now your
yes,
husband. You know, they always push you to do more than you really think you're capable of mentally. And it's such being an artist and being a creative is such a mental fortitude that you have to build strength and continue on like, okay, we've reached this point, but we can go further and I can do more and I
totally.
can keep expanding. And I myself actually applied to Berklee as well for their contemporary jazz
Oh,
division.
amazing.
And you're so right. When you are contemplating a school like Berklee, where it is very art focused, which traditional universities are not really art focused, you just get the widest pool of talent imaginable.
Yeah,
And especially on your end, like there's some similarities here because I went to school for Foley sound and I was like always supposed
amazing.
to be in my mind in the background doing the background work, understanding through that how certain industries worked in entertainment and in the world of entertainment, furthermore going on to do sound design for like EDM companies, you know, Splice, like somatic stuff like that.
Cool. Okay. Yeah. Yeah.
And then you're like, oh wait, like something's missing. I'm supposed to be doing more. And
Right.
that's so amazing. And are you still in Brooklyn now, in New York
I
now?
am. Yeah, I'm
Uh
actually home now. I'm very happy. Touring is done for the season, and I, usually get to hibernate for December. The
mhm.
industry slows down and just write music and be at home with my routine because I'm a homebody. So this makes me very
I
happy.
am too. I'm a very much so homebody and it's crazy. Like, have you felt like in the last year your career has really just started to kind of like tumble over that mountain where you're touring all the time, you've got deadlines all the time, or did you feel like it was more just like an of accumulation? Because I know you've been releasing since like what 2016,
16, yeah.
2017. Okay, 2016, and that was exactly when like the SoundCloud good era golden days still
The
existed
best.
and you could just find these artists and like really, you know, I think of like in the back of my head, like a crazes do it to it, you know, like you could have like a one hit wonder on SoundCloud and like pop off. And then you were like, okay, we're here, let's get going. And it's not the way I think music streaming
No,
is formulated anymore. And so much of it is like pushed through Spotify, but SoundCloud black holes and SoundCloud eras where you would find people with 100 followers that are just making so much like forward thinking music is absolutely just incredible. And I wish we had still some more of that.
me
But
too. Me
it's
too.
it's really cool to see the people who are coming up in that era now just like doing the darn thing. And I've followed Memba for such a long time. And then when I found out
Awesome.
not only you guys were married, but it was like he's your producer and you guys work together, like I would love to know about, you know, the creative process. Like when you tell me that he said like, okay, like you need to start writing, like you have this beautiful voice, like how can we channel this into something that will provide you an outlet to be an artist? Like are you working with a group of songwriters? You know, are you playing a part in the production process? How does that all go down?
Yeah, I think I just really hit the jackpot. I think Ishan and I were genuinely soulmates. He's Indian and
Amazing.
has lived all over the world. I'm a very white girl from Boston, so I always look at him even to this day and I'm like, where did you come from? I know for a fact that it was like meant to be, because you're right. He's like always pushed me to like believe in something bigger. So I really didn't think that that was possible. I never called myself a writer. I always called myself a singer, a musician, but not a writer. And I just got a lot of inspiration from him and Will, constantly making like literally 8 to 9 hours a day to this day, every single day, making music. There's never, ever, ever a day except for Saturday that they're not making music.
Amazing.
So it's just awesome to watch. It's super inspiring. And it got me in this mode of like, okay, let me try that. There were millions of really bad songs. Um, like, I mean, people still like some of the older catalog, which shocks me, but it's just stuff that I'm like, oh my God, what was I doing? But I was figuring it out as I went. We still live in the same apartment that we kind of started the whole thing in. And our second floor, there's a studio. That's where Memba is. And then I'm down here and I record in my bathroom. So like everything that you've heard up till now has just been super grassroots, recorded from our home, recorded from our closet upstairs. I'm super lucky because I've done tons of sessions in LA and all over, set up through my label and publishing and all that. But I super enjoy collaborating with other people, but Will and Ishan are kind of like my base camp of writing. So we write everything. Ishan and Will mix and master everything. So like everything is just in-house, which is just a dream, honestly, for a
Amazing.
vocalist,
Mhm.
because most people don't have that. They have to find, you know, source out elsewhere, and it's really tough to find people that you click with. I'm obviously the closest two people in my life, so it's very easy to be vulnerable and raw and open up. So I sometimes, there's like two ways we do things. Sometimes I start things on my own, just on my computer, doing like little mumbles and things like that. Then I bring it upstairs and we flush it out together, or we start from scratch upstairs. And then honestly, any of the songs I start with other people, I usually bring home to Memba and we finish, because they're just kind of the last 15 percenters for me. They can dial the song in, get it to where it wants to be, and then we release. So I'm lucky.
That's so it literally is a dream. And I feel like, especially with your background given, I always say it's not really like right place, right time. It's like right place, right time plus like 10 years of hard work and like reaching
Oh
that
yeah,
98 percentile and then having that like, you know, collaborative group or those people walk into your life that you just click with, because it's so far and few between, especially I feel like in today's age where it's amazing because, you know, we have the capabilities to open Discord or open Zoom and work or fly across the country and work, but having that like home ground and having those people, you know, not only have expertise in other areas that, you know, you yourself may not be as strong in or has as much as experience in,
mm,
and being able to be comfortable with them and open up is like,
yeah.
okay, hello. And the last like 15% of a song is always the most important. I feel like,
Always, yeah,
you can write and you can get in a flow and then, you know, you're feeling like great and then you revisit it the next day and you're like, it's right there, but like, what does it need? And
exactly.
that like in my lane, I wish, you know, producers, I think producers are getting a bit better at it, but because we're like producers, there's this like stigma that we're supposed to be alone in a room finishing everything ourselves. And that's just not the case for the best pieces of artwork that you can like put out into the world for other people
For
to
sure.
consume. Like the more minds that you have, the better it's going to be, the more ideas are going to be flowing and like so on and so forth. But that's what a dream come true. And that makes me so excited for you because it's like this endless outlet of, hey, I'm like here to write and here's what you do. And they seem to have their own kind of schedule of progression where it's secondhand nature for them. We're here doing this 8, 9 hours a day. We're producing nonstop. And like, this is our life.
Yeah, no, I mean, they've just made that decision and haven't turned back. And I feel like I think as far as like the schedule, I think it's important to touch on, like, I think there are some artists that are good to write when they're on the road. I am now 30 years old, just accepting the parts of me, like
Mhm.
very much so, where I'm a very like, when I'm touring, I'm touring. I'm going all out. I give everything on stage. It's really grueling. It's like an hour long. I have to protect my voice. Like I'm not in a creative state at all. I used to get so bummed because I'm like, oh, I should be out here writing while I'm on the road, setting up a microphone in a random corner in a cold, dark room. Like it's just, that is not me. It never will be. So just this year told my team, listen, I need this time in the winter when I'm not touring. That is my time. I'm creative when I'm well rested, when I'm hydrated, when I'm in my routine. That's just it. And so I have some good days of sleep after this last tour, and I'm starting to like, I was so bummed because I'm like, oh, I'm not feeling creative. I always feel that way while I'm on tour. And then when I give myself like a week or two at home, that just channel opens back up, and now I have all these ideas. So I've just accepted that that is my schedule as an artist. Everyone's different, and it's just like I'm going to come home from tour and then write. That's my time. So
Exactly, and I feel like having that, oh, here, my Akira saying
hi.
hello. Hi, baby. Um, having that time is so important because, like, I mean, I'm not saying that DJs aren't like full on performers, but you're exuding so much energy. You're like a pop star kind of in the electronic live indie hybrid space where I've seen videos of your shows. I haven't had the opportunity to catch you live yet, but you're like a magic jumping bean. Like it's like I can't
Thank you.
imagine. I can't imagine how many calories an hour you're burning and heart rate
Literally,
like up.
it's a
And
workout.
it is a workout. And it's like your heart rate is so high you have to train to be able to sing those vocals and belt and do the choreography and do all of this stuff, and it's so amazing because you're one of, really, I'm sure there's a ton of them, you're one of the first acts that I've seen in my wavelength, I would say, besides Haleen, that has kind of been in this space but doing their own thing, but in the clubs and the music venues, and that's a
Yeah.
really cool crossover, and you're able to do it, with a backing track, with having live elements, running everything through Ableton Live, and then having your own set. So where in your career path did you really feel like, okay, like I'm a touring national act now? I know you're with Wasserman. So is that when that kind of started to come about, or was it people like ODESZA or Alison being like, hey, come join me as support for my shows? Walk me through that.
Yeah, I think my goal for Evan Gia from the very beginning has always been I don't want to be a feature artist. And I think when you're in the EDM space as a vocalist, it's very hard to not fall into that hole.
Yeah.
And my goal has always been I want my own lane, my own career. I will feature on other artists if it's like a good collab and it works out.
Like
But
Illenium and Dillon Francis.
exactly.
you know.
That was a no-brainer. So it's like when I do those things, but I want people to click on Evan Gia from their page and go to me and go, oh my God, she has EPs out, a full catalog. She has her own brand. She has an entire career on her own. It's not just, oh, look at, a few other people featuring here and there. So that was always the goal. And every time I brought a new team member on, I'm like, listen, I'm not a feature artist. My dream is the mix between Dua Lipa and RL Grime. That's where I
Oh,
want to be. So
love
I love
it.
that you said pop artist because like I tried to write pretty bangers where it's, the pop verses with the EDM choruses, and that's where we're trying to intersect. And part of that whole vision is the performance. I know I was born to be on stage and as a performer. I think, like I said, if there was a pie chart, I think I'd be like, 95% performer and the rest like falls into place. But I just felt really proud that the vision's actually coming across. For example, this year is like playing stages like Lollapalooza, but also like almost headlining this massive stage at EDC. So it's like the bookings are showing, people are understanding it now that I can do both. It is not without like, it's tough sometimes though, because I have to convince people, like on my tour, for example, I got booked at a nightclub and they only had a DJ booth. And I'm like, I am a vocalist. Like I cannot perform with this, like sidestepping this much room. I need a full stage. This is what I need. And so it's taken 4 years and still working on it to try and get people to understand it. Once they see me, they're like, oh, okay, like she needs a stage. But I still feel good that I can bridge the gap because that was always the goal. And I never really wanted to make bubblegum pop. I wanted to make shit that really bangs because that's the stuff that I listen to. So yeah, I'm happy it's coming together really well.
It's definitely coming across, and I feel like always like the road less traveled is going to be so much fucking harder to
Oh
like
yeah.
get
Yeah.
people to like see the vision in full. It takes such a long time, and I think of artists like Nitty Gritty, like Dillon Francis, like Illenium, where you know they've taken a very multi-genre approach to their career, and
Hmm.
you know they've been very accredited producers who have maybe not like been like, oh, I'm like just a bass act, I'm just a trap act, I'm just a tech house act. And it's taken longer for their fan base to like really get behind it because traditionally, as you know, an electronic artist, you're making kind of in this like circle of genre of music with maybe a little things falling slightly out of the circle.
Yeah.
And now I'm seeing a lot more artists that are, I think, just being a lot more widely like receptive, and also fan bases that are being a lot more widely receptive to new things and not hearing the same thing over and over and over again. And I think that falls
Yeah.
really well into like you breaking out into this like unique new lane that's, you know, I think of the ultra live stage. I think of people like Elohim and Allison's live show and all of these DJs that are really leaning into their artistry as live performers. And like me personally, myself, I feel like that is the future of electronic music in a whole, is like bringing back like Nero, bringing back like all of these people
Yeah,
that did these
exactly. And
full
that's what my
production
bread and butter
shows.
growing up with was.
Really?
And I just was like, what if I could bring it together? And I do think the more you can just forget about trying to fit into a genre. Like now when I'm writing what's coming from my heart because that's Evan Gia. Like that's
Mhm.
just art already is Evan Gia if it came from me. And I have
Yeah.
to keep reminding myself that because there's tons of expectations with my label, with playlisting. It's like, well, I mean, I don't get it. Like it's not going to sit here, but it's not going to sit here. That you're making your life so hard. And I'm like, well, that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I don't want it to be obvious which way
Mhm.
we're going. It may take a longer for people to like latch on, but I'm okay with that. Like I do think it's been a slow grind. It's not very slow. Like I think everybody's like hard on themselves and wants more and more and more. It has not been that slow. It's only been like 4 years, but still like, yeah, there's times where I'm like, okay, like where's that moment? When I have to remind myself that moment has already come, I'm in it. It's the process. I'm living it right now. I'm living, I can feed myself from my music. That was the only goal and that is it. So there shouldn't be more of that. But I think as humans, we're constantly like, okay, what's next? So
Constantly, especially if you're like not necessarily like very hard on yourself. Like I know I'm hard on myself, but I think especially women in creative spaces, we're built so differently than the average like male that I think our
yeah,
brains are just wired to not only know that we have to go above and beyond to like prove the worth, prove we're doing the writing, prove like in whatever's mind or for your like own self-conscious that like you deserve to be here and I've earned my
right.
way here. And like that sometimes can mess with your head when like all of these amazing things that you've worked years to accomplish are starting to happen and you're like, wait, is this supposed to be happening to me? Is this really like happening in
Yeah,
this
you
day
have
and
to stay
age?
so present. It's
Mhm.
crazy because you can easily, like the summer I had, I wanted that summer forever. It's like, what? You played a festival every weekend. Like, what could be better than that? And then, of course, like, I'm just like, okay, well, that's great. We check that off next. Like, I like it. I do like that part of that's the only reason I am. I do think the reason I am where I am today is like the constant motivation in my heart type of thing. And also
Mhm.
just my organization and business mind. I don't think you can do it this far without being good at all of that. And knowing how to like manage a team and push a team and build a team and like get people behind it and sell it and like yeah, and the branding, all of that. I think there's so many more elements than people think. It's not just like making the music and putting on the show. I spend so much of my time on the business of M&G. It's like I mean, pretty much, I try to tell myself sometimes, I'm like, okay, back off, like, come back to what is the core of this, which is the music for sure. But like, people ask me for advice and I'm like, oh my God, like, be organized, like, be a businesswoman. Like,
You
that's
literally
what,
have to. And that's what people think, that art and business don't fall in the same category. But if you want to make the smartest decisions that are in the best interest of yourself, you have to have an understanding of what every team member is supposed to be doing on your team, how to lead, how to organize. And if you have a team full of men, it's kind of hard sometimes, which,
so
we
hard. I've been going through it. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's hard to take that front forward position. And, as a woman, in my mind all the time, I'm like, okay, you're either going to be pushed over or walk over, or you're going to come off as a bitch. And it's
Hmm.
nothing in between. And I think so much of that, and I think every woman creative I've spoken to still kind of deals with it, when we know we shouldn't care and we just need to do what needs to get done. But then you also have that little voice in the back of your head that goes, okay, but I'm a really nice individual and I care about
Yes.
everybody and I don't want people to think I'm mean, but I also know I'm going to get taken advantage of if I don't do this the way that it should be done, that I want it to be done, to feature my vision solely. And
Hmm.
it's a really hard in between. And that's why, I mean, looking back now, like, it's just so important to appreciate the journey. And all of us are so impatient and we want the next thing tomorrow. But
Right.
going through the things when you're supposed to go through them are so important, because if you jump the gun and you get somewhere before you're supposed to be there, you can really step on your own foot. And
It's so
having,
true. I'm
you
seeing that a
know,
lot with all the TikTok people too, where like I
oh my
see it
God.
blow up overnight. And then, yeah, of course, there's parts of me that's like, oh, that's so amazing. Look at all their streams. Holy shit. Like, wish I had that. But then I see them going on these tours, and a few of them actually study with my vocal coach because they like looked it up. I'm like, I want to have a GIIA's vocal coach. Let's see if
Yeah.
I can do it. And my vocal coach let me know. She's like, doesn't tell me names, but she's like, a few of these people just had to drop out of tour because they can't sing through their set. Like, they haven't had those years of, like opening for like 10 people and having to perform your ass off, even though there's literally
No
10 to
one.
5 people there. There's no one there. You're freaking out. Like, it's such an ego slash, but you get through it. It's like 4 years of building up to that. That's why when I do get to these festivals, I do get to these headline shows, I'm like so proud because like I've had the journey. I do think that there's nothing that can replace that. So I think it's super important.
I mean, it's such an intriguing, interesting conversation with TikTok thrown into this new wheel of the entertainment industry, where you see these massive, highly accredited artists like Lana Del Rey, Adele, Taylor Swift, speaking out, where the labels won't let them release the songs until they get the traction here. But then on the flip side, you have these artists or wonderful singers or pianists or violinists blowing up overnight, or DJs doing mashups and all of this stuff. And
Right.
then they're all of a sudden supposed to push hard tickets when you're posting on a platform where you're reaching people in every corner of the world, and you can't tour every corner of the world, and you have no ticket history, and you have no idea what it means to prepare yourself to perform and tour, and the sleep schedule and the diet schedule and the health routine, and like all of that has to be trial and mistakes and failures and corrected and
Yeah.
improved upon for you to actually incorporate touring into like your career, to expand that like shelf life, because like every career has a shelf life. So it's like it's really cool if you want to be on TikTok and you know how to use the algorithm and blow up, and you want to tour, do whatever for 2 to 3 years. But the majority of people I speak with, this is their life. This is everything they've poured every inch of their soul and financial back end into. And they want this to be their career for the next 10, 1 to 2 decades. And in order to
Right.
do that, it takes a lot of time. Like, you have to build a house of bricks. You cannot build a house of like little leaves and it's just going to get blown over, because it's just crazy, because we've seen the same thing. Like, I'm sure, Memba has spoken about it on our side, where you've seen these TikTok DJs and these TikTok producers just blow the fuck up. And like they're on UTA, they're on Wasserman, they're touring, but it's like this whole new lifestyle that they haven't been exposed to. And I wonder where the middle ground is. Cause, I was just looking at your TikTok the other day and, you have all of these followers, but then the reach is doing the same shit that Instagram's doing. And
literally, it's crazy. I'm getting
how
like
are we supposed to
4,000 followers a
understand?
day. I'm like, but where are you? How can I access you? Are you going to buy tickets to my show? No. Like, it's just wild to me. And my label did give me a bit of like a year ago, I guess, exactly a year ago, being like, I mean, you got to go on TikTok. Like, there's nothing you can do. Just go with the times, whatever. I was like pretty hesitant for a while. So then I'm like, all right, go with the times. I learned how to use it. I put my back into it. I'm like, okay, this is like confusing at first. I get over the hump. I start getting followers. It's like a few things go viral. I'm like, okay, great. But yeah, then you see that kind of plateau as well. And I'm like, okay, there's always going to be something next. And I think if you're constantly in the world of, that's why I'm really proud of both Mamba and I's careers, because it's like, well, I say when we do make it, these are like vocab that I'm actually with my therapy, like
You
pushing
have
out.
made it.
Have made it.
Have made it.
We have. But like, when there's that big breaking next hit or whatever moment, it's like, I'm just glad that we had this step-by-step process. Like, yeah, it's grueling. And like you said at the very beginning of the interview, what an artist does is wake up every day and believe. It's like so hard. It is the hardest part about this on the months that things aren't, streams are plateauing and you feel like everyone's kind of forgotten about you, you haven't toured in a while. You're like, I have to wake up and do this just as hard. Doesn't matter. Like, just keep going is the hardest part because it's all on you. Even if you have a huge team, it doesn't matter. They're not waking up thinking about this stuff. Like, only you are. So yeah, it's huge. But I do think that slow but steady process that I have created, like, I'm just grateful for that because I feel like I'm also just well grounded in who I am and what's important and my mental health. And I think that's just the most important.
And I think it's so important having like individuals around you who ground you as well, who kind of have a step out of the industry to be like, hey, this isn't reality for most individuals. And what you're doing is a very you know, amazing, specific, unique lifestyle. And it's really
Yeah.
hard for people who aren't all in it to fully understand the mental things that you may be going through in the ruts. And you're completely correct where you haven't toured for a while, maybe you're preparing an EP, maybe you're preparing an album, you see the streams plateau. That's when it is 110% the toughest, because it's like,
The
okay,
worst.
does anybody, you have to like love it so much that you would do it for yourself even if nobody was watching, no one was
No
on
one
the
was
team,
listening. Yeah.
no one was listening, because it's through those times that you like push yourself really to the other side. And it's really dependent on like sitting on your shoulders and even having that best friend or that boyfriend or that husband that's like there for you to speak to understand, to like give you words of encouragement. Is like having that ground point of people who aren't also on an agency or working for a label has helped me substantially. And a lot of the people I've spoken with have kind of said the same, of having that like safe space to be like, okay, this is like
Absolutely.
hard.
And I talk about this in my show and all the time, but yeah, my therapy it's everything. Like, I think also as an artist, it's so important because my therapist is constantly reminding me that this isn't normal. She's like, Evan, it's not normal. This is not normal. Like, you having to work for everyone's approval and like keep making sure that everyone cares about you every week, and that your labor needs you to post like 3 TikToks, but you need to write, but you also need to be on the road. He's like, it's not normal. So first off, just acknowledging that is huge because like sometimes I get so in comparison and all the stuff that you're required to be on social media all day, which is obviously going to deplete your dopamine.
Yes.
So it's like, yeah, it's just those reminders are so important because it's a wild society. And I think as entertainers, we have to like take it on our backs even more than most, when you're like constantly like, I need to be relevant, I need to be relevant. So
And that
Yeah.
relevancy, like, very little has to actually do with, like, your musical output. And I think that's, like a very kind of middle ground as well. And like what you said with your label. So, y do you run your own label now? Were you with a label? Are you signed to a label? Tell me about that process and, like, how it fits, like, uniquely into your lane. Like, are they helping, are they running your tour? Are they the promoter for your tour? What is the back end of where you release all your music?
Sure. So I'm signed to Capitol Records,
Okay.
under Astralwerks Records.
Okay.
And yeah, I signed with them about like 3.5 years ago. We're about to re-up on a new option period. So like we signed for a significant amount of songs. And I don't know. I didn't know much, but when I was at that time, it was like 2019, and it looked like an opportunity that was great. And it has been awesome. They give me, a good amount of reach and legitimacy. They help with playlisting and
Mhm.
all that stuff. But what I'm starting to learn, and what every artist will tell you, is that it's all on me. Like, it's no one's going to really push it there for you. If I
Mhm.
got a huge hit that was starting to gain serious traction on TikTok or the radio or something, they
Maybe.
could step in and really get it there. But they've said so themselves, developing artists kind of like not really there. They're not there to push it every day, and that's on me, and that's on me to lead my team to get it there. So that was a rude awakening for a while, because I'm like, what? I thought you're gonna sign and then they just kind of get you
Capitol
there, and
Records, you're
that's
like,
just
"Hello?" Yeah.
exactly. And I'm like, no, it's just not the case. So it's been good, honestly, though, because I've had to expand my team, learn to work with them. It's a lot of compromise. There's times where I'm like, I don't agree with something, or like getting on TikTok, for example, is like tough moments. But like at the end of the day, it is like this comforting thing to know, like it starts and ends with me, and
Mhm.
what's really important starts and ends with me. As far as the touring stuff, that's all with Wasserman, my agents. There, who were the first people to join my team, and probably some of my favorite people on my team, just because they've created such an incredible touring business, which is literally almost 97 to 100% of my income. So yeah, it's amazing to have all the puzzles in piece as far as the team. But
Yeah.
again, like, it really all comes down to me. So
Yes. And that's what I think. I think for the longest time in my head, I was like, "Okay, you work so freaking hard to get noticed, and then you work to even harder to get people who believe in your vision and wanna be a part of it." And then it was like something just based on, like, watching other people's careers, and, like, when you first start doing this, you understand the positions, but you don't really, like, get it. You're not really, like, super knowledgeable on, like, what you said with, like, the Capitol Records deal where,
yeah.
looks like a great opportunity, looks like they're gonna do a lot, they'll help here, here, and here, but they're not gonna make you. And I think a lot of, developing acts have this stigma that, "Oh, well, like, once I reach the 3 major corporate agencies, like, I'm set. Like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
be
I mean,
taken
that's kind
care
of what
of."
it's all said, is like, okay, then you make it. Like,
Mhm. You've
and
made
what
it.
is making it, though? I mean, really. So it's kind of just a slow every year building on it.
Yep.
And I don't think that's specific to my label. It's like everyone's
Everyone.
situation. It's just a kind of growing pain of becoming an artist. So it's been, and I'm so lucky to have those opportunities have put on my lap, just because I do feel like everything I've done up until now is the right move, because it was just like meant to be.
Yes.
It led to something else. It led to me meeting someone else, or doing something else, or learning something. And like, I've been through many contracts that were horrible, like with random, managements or something like that. And it's just so stressful in the
We've all
moment, but I'm
gone through it.
so glad that happened. So
Mhm.
glad.
It's so important to have those people who believe in you when nobody else does, in addition to
Yeah,
yourself, because really what I've seen is, like, nobody gives a shit until everybody gives a shit. And and
exactly.
and there's, like, nowhere really in between, because it's like having those, even if it's, you don't have to have a big team either, I feel. You just have to have a
Yeah,
select few people. And it's like, if those people happen to be on Wasserman, those are a great few people to be on
yeah,
your side to push your
exactly.
project. And so when you started with Wasserman, you know, was it like, okay, you're a developing act. We're gonna watch you and like this is what I have in mind for you. Like, tell me how that conversation went because I think a lot of the times, I mean, what I just said, like people are like, oh, like I'm on Wasserman, I'm on UTA, I'm on CAA, my career is made. And then they end up being benched because they don't fit the agent they were signed to, or you know, they're still only making $500 a show and they're getting their agent's cut and the management cut and they're paying for travel and then they're negative. So how did that like agreement happen with you for you to feel like, okay, like this is the right team for me to move forward with?
Sure. Yeah. So I was lucky enough to land with the right agents. I don't think it has anything to do with the company. It's just the right people, like you
Mhm.
said. And they immediately had a plan, and it was a long-term plan. That's why I love my agents, because it wasn't just like, great, we'll get you on a bunch of shows this year. It was like, all right, let's put you in a bunch of support. So I did a ton of support, and that's how I literally gained 95% of my fan base, is out touring
Mhm.
with these other artists. And it was awesome because they used the artists they already had on their roster. So it wasn't like these big reaches. So he immediately was able to get me in on all these big tours. My first tour ever
Crazy.
was arena tour with ODESZA, which is insane. So yeah, I was starting with support, and then they slowly built it to a point where maybe we could do one small headline tour, one small headline show, and then we got festivals, and then the festivals let you do the next headline, and then now it's just this back and forth plan, and
Mhm.
everything is thought out. We don't just accept shows. Like, everything is, oh, does that make sense for this promoter in that stage, so that next year she could get it at Boston for this stage and that promoter. So they're just really good at what they do. And from the very beginning, I trusted their process because it was working. So I just kind of really got lucky in that arena for sure. But the other thing is, they put me on these things and I wowed the promoters every time. So that's really helpful, because then they're like, okay,
Yes.
great. We'd love to have her back. She killed it. She brought this many people, blah, blah, blah. People were loving it. Where can we have her next, type of thing. So it works really well that way.
Yeah, and it takes so much time too for you to get to a point where you're like, okay, my performance is solid. Like I know I can go out there and I can like not only bring a select, you know, few people, a percentage of the crowd that's coming to see such a massive A-list artist, you know, I can also stand out, be unique. I've like honed my craft. I know what the vision is, and that's how I feel like you really do create your own lane, and kind of what you touched on earlier, where in the electronic dance music space, you know, vocalists, you know, 98.9% of the time fall into that feature circle. And it's really, really hard to get out of. You know, you
Right.
can be a featured artist on, you know, every A-list, you know, song, but you're still not able to really create your own demand or your own lane. I mean, I've spoken to vocalists that have been on the other side of this where it's been really hard for them, you know, whether it's lack of a team or you know lack of knowledge in kind of like the business lane, um to really not only like be respected but be like paid properly and then you know brought out to shows to sing and have X, Y, and Z compensated. I mean, like what would be a few pieces of advice like from your own experience for these women, because I know they all want to do what you're doing in their own lane, give or take, you know, the subgenre, but they have the hardest time pulling themselves back from, you know, being that featured act. You know, is it the power of no? Is it having your own team? What would you say?
Yeah, I would say it's the power of no as well, because like, I mean, I get like hundreds of feature
I can't
opportunities
imagine.
at this point, which is
Mhm.
awesome, because I've got myself to this place. It's like, okay, she's good vocals for this. Like,
Mhm.
she's the girl I want to go to. But like, it's all about, building up your nose to make the next one the best opportunity possible, which was hard for me because I'm a very people pleaser, always being like, you know what, we should just try it. But now I'm starting to understand like the power of that. Also, I would say like having your own catalog is the most important part. So like, yeah, okay, maybe those songs, my top five, that's Don't Let Me Let Go, is the Dillon and Illenium song. Obviously, those are going to be my top streamers. I mean, Westworld is my hit, but other than that, those are the top streamers. That's okay. But they need to be able to go to your page and see your EP. It may not be racking it up. It doesn't matter. My Endorphins EP is doing well. It's not like millions and millions, but it's the people that came to my headline tour are screaming every word of the Endorphins songs. They don't really care about the features. They're like, that's cool. That was awesome. But like,
They
we
want
like this
you.
song.
Mhm.
Yeah. So getting that music out is the most important thing, I think. Just like keep going. And like honestly going and performing on those stages. I did it all summer with Dillon and Illenium. Amazing. Like never say no to that. I just feel like that's always a good thing. Always good for exposure. There's gonna be at least, you know, maybe 1, 2 to like 1,000 people in the crowd that go, whoa, who's that? Holy shit, that was sick. And then they follow you. So I think in the performance round, there's like nothing really wrong with it. But I think with writing, you just have to, yeah, you can continue to do those features, but I would say like say no to a few more and then start putting out your own stuff slowly but surely. It takes, you know, it took 4 years to get the catalog that I have because it's not like you can release one every month, especially when you're on a label. So
No, absolutely. And like in that process too, like I know, you know, you said you were lucky in this lane where you did have, you know, producers behind you. My experience from talking with, you know, these women sometimes is like finding that right producer that you
that's the
gel
number one
with.
thing I get asked because they're like, well, where do I go? Like,
Yeah.
I do features because the person brings me the track and then I just sing over it. So,
Yeah.
but what do I do? And I just feel like literally the only way is to continue to do those sessions, as many as you can. Sessions for your own project. I don't know. It's tough, you know, without label or publisher help, but like in LA, it's, you know, you find those circles pretty easily. And then I would just like stick with the few people that you felt like, oh, that was a good one. Like you can tell there's either really good sessions or really bad ones where you're like, we did not
Hmm.
click.
Yeah.
So finding those people and then, you know, like bringing it up to them being like, hey, like, is this something you might want to like dig in with me on? And like, because doing one session here and there and doing songs with a million different producers creates this body of work that just doesn't really make much sense. And that's
Yeah.
what's starting to happen to me. I was like, well, I have a million songs, but they're all sound completely different and they're confusing. And then when I did brought them all to Membo, we were like, okay, Evan Gia. Like we just had to keep coming back to the sound.
Yeah.
Because another hard thing about being a vocalist is like you can do a lot of things. Like I can rap, I can sing pop, I can do classic EDM top line, but like go back to what your sound is. Just like you have to keep doing that because you can make a good song. It's like everyone can make a good song.
And I feel like so much of it is like finding that like unique formula that's exactly what you said, true to you in the sound that you want to really accomplish because you're correct. It's kind of like if you're working with all of these producers, you can learn so much. And I feel like if you're at an elementary phase, that's so good because like you want to be able to work with new people and you want to be able to learn and
Totally.
trial and know when it feels good and know when you're like, wow, that we really didn't click and that didn't go as well as imagined. But if you're always having people telling you what they want from you on their own tracks, you're correct. You're not going to get a sound. You're not going to have a cohesive vision of, you know, who you want to be as Evan Gia, as Lizzy Jane, as, you know, X, Y, and Z and developing that sound. And would you say it took you like 2 years, 3 years? What was it to be able to say, okay, like this is the Evan Gia sound. This is the pop
Yeah.
mixed with hybrid EDM.
I do think that was like
Yeah.
three solid years.
Okay.
I do think it's funny because you think it takes that long, but then you look back at my old songs and that was Evan Gia. It was Evan Gia from the start, but for you to really understand it and know
Yeah.
how to keep writing it, it's like three. And we have like
Okay.
it's like an equation now. We don't always go by it because that's boring and no one wants to write like that. But
Yeah.
there is
Yeah.
an
Yeah. Yeah.
equation. There's an Evan Gia equation. So it's, yeah, you find it.
And so much of like finding your sound was like also like finding you have the Evan Gia, like the move, like the movement tour. You did the bike classes and you did the touring. And it's like for me, like I love to talk, like the podcast is part of me. Like those move sessions are part of your project. And I know you like highly prioritize health. I'm the same way. I'm like, not necessarily a
On the
gym
break, I
rat.
heard you say, will you wait for me to go to the
Oh,
gym?
yeah. So I'm not like a crazy gym rat, but like I know how important like having a healthy diet and sleep schedule and, exercise is oh my god, it's like right up there with me in the top 3 to be able to do this like long term and not like burn out. Like you have to
Yeah.
have some sort of balance and routine and like try and preserve that as much as possible because like you're going to lose your sleep schedule 100%. But, if you keep the aluminum water bottle and you have the protein in a bag and you do X, Y, and Z, because I think the most common aspect that I've seen in people who have just been doing this for like so long, and I'm sure like you saw it with the guys with ODESZA and stuff, like not only as a singer can you not really like, I would say, be that like DJ lifestyle sometimes of getting messed up and partying and
Yeah.
like you have to
Yeah.
preserve your vocal cords, is that the Zeds Deads of the world and the ODESZAs of the world, like they take care of themselves. Like they like whether it's working out or eating right, like you have to have some sort of health guidance or your body's just going to be like, I can't take this. This is why like pop stars
Yeah.
have like personal trainers on the road and like all of that
Totally.
stuff to keep them in line. So how did like these two worlds combined?
Yeah, so one of the many like hardships of getting to be an artist, my beginning journey was how the hell do I make money while I start this project? Because I mean,
Mhm.
it took like at least 3 years to get a significant check going.
Yeah.
So I was like, I mean, it's all well and good. I can start writing, but like I cannot live, especially in New York City in between that time. So I was like, but I can't be at a 9 to 5 desk. I need more time. I need a more flexible job. So I became a spin instructor and I was always I was certified in yoga and I grew up with an active family. So,
Mhm.
my parents' lifestyle is like you wake up, you move, and
Move.
then you start your day. Like there is no like they've never skipped a day type of thing. And it's not like in an unhealthy way. It's more just like you said, for your mental. It's not for weight and abs and all that. It's just literally just a part of mental health, a
Yes.
part of living right. So that was ingrained in me. I became a spin instructor. I started loving it because almost like performing, you're up on a podiums for 50 people in a room. I started selling out every class. They loved my playlists because I played some of my own music, plus just like straight bangers and I loved coming up with the playlists. It was like finding them on SoundCloud and stuff like that and creating these epic, basically DJ sets for an hour. And then had a fandom like in Brooklyn, like everybody's like, oh, you got to go to Emmy's class. Like she's the best one there, blah, 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 and all this stuff. And I just started to feed off of it. It's just like being an artist. So I was like,
Mhm.
this is awesome. So sad to have to leave it. Touring started picking up. I signed with Wasserman and I was like, okay, this is awesome, but I have to leave. So I was
Yeah.
like, how can I meld my fitness with music? And Evan GIIA has always from the beginning, I kind of like any business, and I would give this as a recommendation, made like a business plan for Evan GIIA. Like, what does it smell like, sound like, taste like? Like, what is its mission statement? And for me, it's like make music for people to move to. And I've always just wanted people to be at my shows, like leaving sweaty and happy and have endorphins and dopamine like pulsing through their veins, but also they could be on a treadmill and just bang out a crazy workout because it's just hitting that hard. So I started GM Move because I was just like, you know what, I want to bring in that old part of my life. I was like, normal meet and greets are pretty boring. Who wants to stand in a line and just take a picture? I was like, what if I worked out with my fans?
I love
So
that.
it started at the very beginning, like tiny stages, and it's gotten to this place now where I'm like teamed up nationally with Soul Cycle and Aloe Yoga, and we're making these events across the country, which is just absolutely insane. Like, because I just never thought that they would latch on. They're loving it. I'm
Mhm.
bringing in like 45 new
Oh,
riders to their
yeah.
studios. They're like, this is popping off. I sell my custom GM Move merch, which is going to be eventually, like a whole athletic wear line, which was my dream. And I just love how it's all working out. My if you see like my branding and stuff, it's like sports oriented branding. Like, the Nikes of
Yes.
the
The
world is
logo.
the
Yeah. Yep.
logo, everything. Like that's all intentional. So yeah.
I love it. And it's like I feel like it will create and it already has created like such a close-knit community of people who are like like-minded, prioritize health, prioritize X,
Yeah.
Y, and Z. And like that's so cool because community is so, I would say, like, from the business side, like, building a community is so important for, like, an artist's career,
And I
and
always wanted it to be like, how can I make it cool to care about yourself? Like,
yeah,
how can I make it swag to work out and go to therapy and get to bed early and hydrate? Like, that's my goal. Like, it's cool. It's cool to
yeah.
care.
Oh my god,
It's
it is
not
cool.
cool to party it like till you can't anymore. Like, it's not cool to push yourself to the brink. Like, that's not cool anymore. And it's not cool to be sad. Like, that sucks. Like,
It
no one wants to be
sucks. And
depressed.
you don't have to be sad. You don't have to be depressed. Life is just all based on the choices you make and how you proceed and go backwards and learn from your mistakes and your failures and it's so true and I love it because I feel like you and I've started to see other artists really speak out about it is like what you said, like it's cool to care about your body, about your mental wellness, about all of the stuff. And I love that it's being discussed because for such a long time it was really pushed to the side. And now it's kind of being brought to the forefront with artists like you, where it's like, hey, this is okay. Excuse me. Hey, this is okay. This is cool. And this is how I live my life. And I'm a touring artist and I'm not partying every night. And I'm not putting forth this image that I'm doing all of these things just to be like cool and da da da. Like, take care of yourself, you know?
No, I think like it's just so huge to like have that message just because I do think, especially in the EDM space, like you said, it's just
Yes.
not normally the
Nope.
case. And I think, I've always just wanted to be a source of motivation. Like, I want to be an inspiration and motivation. And I do get a lot of that feedback from my fans just being like, I don't know, I put it on and I ran an extra mile. Like, I didn't think I could. And a lot of people coming to these GIIA Move events have never spun before. They've never done any of this. They're coming because they love me and they want to support me, which is incredible. But then they leave and go, oh, I could handle that. That was awesome. Maybe I'll
Or
come
like that
back.
feels so good. It's kind
That
of like
just
one of
felt
those
amazing. I've
things.
never
Yeah.
felt a release like that before. And like to introduce people to something they've never done before like that is huge. So
It's
yeah.
huge. Ah, amazing. Okay, so before I let you go, what is next for the Evan Gia project? I know you just released an EP not too long ago, so I don't assume another huge body of work anytime soon unless you're working on one, or what can you tease for us coming up?
Yeah. So just finished the tour and now this is really writing era. I am putting boundaries down and I'm just saying goodbye to everyone. I need
Love
to
it.
write the next era of Evan G and I'm super excited for that, for everybody to hear. I want to put out either an EP or album, but I would say it probably will be an EP because we just have so much
Mhm.
stuff to put out.
Yes.
So EP this year for sure, body of work. More GIIA Move events, bigger on a national scale, which will be really fun because I'm trying to do like my own GIIA Move type of tour,
Yeah.
separate of my touring. A ton of festivals this summer, and then hopefully a headline tour, and just a lot of like growth along the way. I'm excited to hear what this new music sounds like. Also, I'm excited to put my opera background into my music. That is the goal for the
Yes.
sound of this next thing. So it
Oh.
is the intro of my tour, which just finished, was an aria and it went straight into Momentum, which is a huge banger. So my
Mhm.
goal is to now meld opera and EDM, whether that's with background vocals or there's a whole pre-chorus where I use that high register of my voice and then go into a big drop. That is the goal. So I'm excited for people to hear that section of things.
Ah, I love it. I'm so excited to hear it myself. Thank you so much for coming on today. I'm so excited, hopefully some people will get on the GIIA Move train after this for
Yes,
cheering
I
it
love it.
and check
Please.
out some events when you're coming to your town. My dog is going absolutely crazy, but I really
We gotta
appreciate it,
go.
Evan. I really hope to sometime meet you soon. Next time you're in Denver, I will keep
Oh,
an
for
eye
sure.
out.
I'm
Would
definitely
love to
playing
get
there
lunch.
next year. So we'll
Okay,
get you on the list for a
perfect.
show and we'll have
Amazing.
fun.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I
So
hope you
nice
have
meeting you. Thank you so
so
much for
nice
having
meeting
me.
you. Absolutely. I will talk to you soon.